student. So we challenged back the district, can we now revert back to our table process that we used to serve through? So kids would come through a serving line. Back to the district, can we now, we're attributing a lot of the problems to that. We've already met with, we used 3 groups or 4 groups at this point. Some of student groups at the high school certainly to that. I would point with EIS next Friday, this Friday, with student groups there. We've met with each of the family liaisons collectively for the groups, and then we met with a parents group as well. And we heard a lot of criticism, compliments, comments, a lot of things that parents didn't know, a lot of things they did know. And then we met with a parents group as well. We heard a lot of criticism, compliments.
So we're not going to be able to get it up on the screen, unfortunately. So we're going to have to kind of modify the style of it. In the attendance list, is there a list of emails that we can also send a backup of the presentation to as well, so that everyone can see it?
If you send it to citywide, we can forward it out.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect.
Can you kind of see? But
Yeah, there you go.
It's going to be tiny, we apologize.
Talk to it.
Okay, so like Barry said, my name's Leah McFarland. I started a little while ago as a dietitian.
It's going to be tiny, we apologize.
Yeah, it's been awesome so far. It's nice to see everybody and faces and things like that on the computer. Okay, so, but I want to talk a little bit about what we do as a team, along with all of the many food service staff that your kids see every day. So we provide meals, obviously, would be the bare minimum, I suppose. But we also kind of take off the weight of making sure that safety protocols are followed, along with like regulations and guidelines and all of that. We like to engage with the community, obviously, here, and we've done a couple committees and whatnot. So that's kind of how we as a company want to come to Danbury. We also, there's a big part of it is making sure we're in line with like healthcare professionals. So I'm constantly talking to all the nurses and making sure, you know, any special requests are being filled, because I completely understand everyone is so specific, and there's picky eaters and there's, you know, special requests that need to be made for every student. Because I completely understand everyone is so like specific in of my job. There's picky eaters and there's, you know, we work as a team oftentimes to every student. Kind of completely understand everyone is so like specific in facing. So, you know, we work as a team oftentimes to supplies, but kind of weigh all that. Weigh all that everyone is so like specific and then facing. So, you know, we work as a team oftentimes to supplies, but kind of weigh all that. Weigh all that everyone is so like specific and then facing. So, you know, we work as a team. We also have regulations, which I'll get in a little bit more, because that's the part really that we wanted to share with you all, because that's not something that's typically known. I mean, even as a dietitian, before I started this job, I knew the baseline, obviously, but not really the nitty-gritty of it. So I wanted to share a little bit with you guys all. Community wants and needs, so that's why we're here to talk to you all and see, you know, as much as we can think about what they want, we never really know until we hear from all of you. And as well as like time management, the classic, same as any management of food service. It always has to get taken into account. So this is how essentially the regulations are broken down. So it starts up at the USDA, as every government regulation starts. So that's the Department of Agriculture. And then it comes down to the Connecticut State Department of Education. So they also oversee all the regulations in schools, make sure the plates are filled with all the nutrients that your kids could need, and they're not getting too much sugar. So that's the flow of coming all the way down to Danbury, of course. So you might be familiar with the My Plate diagram. I don't know if it's been out for a while now, since Michelle Obama, and so this is our not new, but this is our tool, I guess, to look at portioning and things like that. So although this is the basic part of it, you have, you know, your 5 components to a meal. There's nutrients that me specifically focuses on as well, and has to make sure they're in ranges, so, you know, the state is happy with us. So some of the nutrients that we do are like sodium, so that's listed first because it is probably the toughest to get around, because if you cook at home, you know that salt is just what really gets a dish to be good. And it also kind of stops us from sometimes using packaged things, which can be good and bad, because, you know, they need the longer shelf life and things like that. So sodium is a huge nutrient that we kind of have to focus on and make sure it's in a range. Sugar is also on that, carbohydrates, all that good stuff, protein. We do calories down to, it's really very fine-tuned, so even like the types of vegetables, you have to make sure that there's colors of each one. So you have dark green, you have red, orange, yeah. It's very specific, and they call it a rainbow plate for a reason. So it gets very time-consuming, but you want to make sure that the kids are getting all that they need. Okay, so this has been kind of a big topic within our office, is increasing communication. So we want to kind of have an open floor for dialogue, and the times obviously the past 2 years have been crazy, as we all know, and so it's been ever more prevalent to have, you know, open communication, open dialogue. So there's been a lot of struggles with supply chain barriers and issues and things like that, to the point of, you know, we might have to do last minute changes to the menu. And I know that sometimes the kids might come home and say, oh, I got served this that wasn't on the menu. And we do really, you know, apologize and try very hard to get what's on the menu to be out, because, you know, that's what we had planned for. But sometimes it comes down to the morning of, we'll get a call after it should have been delivered, and they'll say, oh, we didn't drop it off. It's like, oh my goodness, like, what do you mean you didn't drop it off? So, you know, it's been a little tricky to navigate that, but what we found is making sure that we're communicating that with you all and communicating that with the nurses and the staff. Everything like that is pretty much the best way to go about it. If any of you have any, you know, input on that as well, we would love to hear it. But yeah, so our main way of doing that is actually through a texting service. So if you go to the Danbury website, or the Danbury School Lunch website, it looks kind of like this. And then on the right, there's going to be like a little texting service thing. And so if you click that, and then it'll sign up, it'll ask you to text a certain number, and then that's kind of how we really let you know of any menu changes, maybe if there's any seasonal updates or like sneak peeks to menus. That's how we communicate best. All right. And then lastly, we just wanted to see, like, we wanted to tell you how you guys can help as well. And we wanted to say that recipes, we can be creative. So these regulations don't necessarily have to be super restrictive. There's ways where, you know, we can sub in different things, or maybe exclude a little bit of salt and things like that. But we want to see the recipes that you guys are cooking at home, or that are your kids' favorites, because we can find ways of fine-tuning that and making it work for our staff, for our equipment, supply, all that. So recipes and ideas, or even just like a vegetable idea. I'm constantly trying to think of ways to get kids to eat vegetables. And so always hearing things like that are awesome. Relaying any feedback from the kids, because as much as we'd like to be in there 24/7 hearing what the kids are doing and how they like the food, we're unfortunately not always able to hit every school. So we really rely on you guys to hear how they're doing and what they think. And then encouraging, there's some new meals on there. And for example, when we met with Charles on, yes, we spoke about adding plantains to the menu, and that actually was on the December menu, and the kids loved them. We got chicken drumsticks, plantains, and rice and beans on the what was it? Secondary schools. Yes. I'm like trying to remember all the menus and separate them all, But yeah, so we had that, and it was probably one of our most popular days. So we do try and find ways to integrate things onto the menu, but encouraging students, to try new things, because kids are so picky, and it can be really, really challenging as a parent, as a teacher. I know, like, it makes their day when they come in and they see something that they're excited to eat. So encouraging them, oh, try something new, oh, this is on the menu, is really helpful to us and hopefully helpful to the kids to get all the nutrients that they need. And then lastly, we will have some committees. We talked a little bit about establishing new ones coming up or ones that already exist. So taking those opportunities to kind of become engaged in the community with us is also super helpful. So yeah. And then there's our emails and contact info, so we'll definitely send it out. I can also give it at the end if anybody needs it, any cards or anything. So are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think, so it sounds like when COVID came around, that's when maybe the quality, if you will, shifted quite a bit. And you're saying, if I understand you correctly, it's because of the packed items versus being able to just, the line serving.
Right.
So you're asking to return to that other model, and so where are we at with that?
So we met with Kevin Wellston, superintendent, just about a week ago at this point.
Okay.
And we presented to him the fact that at the high school, the students are overwhelmingly happy. Where we used to serve 1,200 or so meals in a short hour and a half period, we're serving now 1,700 students.
So they're overwhelmingly happy with the prepackaged?
From our point of view, yes, unpackaging.
Yes,
Right.
so
Oh,
we
yeah.
have,
Since you went back.
yeah, we have transitioned back to the normal
So
trace.
after high school, it's back to the normal?
Correct.
That is correct. And that change has dramatically increased the flow of students coming in to receive meals. The numbers on all of our stations have increased well over 12 to 15, even 20% in some locations, depending on what the meal is. And it's made a big change. We actually met with a group of what we kind of call similar to like the student board of directors kind of thing, and it spans all 4 grades. So we met with several freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and the feedback almost right out of the gate was that they were already happier with where things were versus where they were prior when everything was in a bag. And that was unanimous amongst everyone in the group, and even said that, oh, this is what our friends are saying. So it was a pretty unanimous statement from them.
So then where are we at with the remaining schools?
So as I understand, Rogers Park is currently operating in the same fashion.
Okay.
Broadview, we are going to be meeting with the principal sometime this week.
That is correct.
Yep.
Okay.
We hope Westside will follow suit. And we've gotten some pushback from the elementary schools, from the principals, because it's certainly not our position to stand in the way. If a principal wants something done differently in each individual school, we kind of bow to their
I think
wishes.
some elementary schools are also still eating in the classroom,
That is correct.
which is
Right.
probably part of the
Well,
issue.
We can serve it, and they can still take it wherever.
Okay.
I'm not even so concerned about where the kids eat. I'm really concerned about what they get. And if they take more, I'm happier, because I know they'll eat it then.
So the
Principals
principals are
are
saying
allowed
like.
to-
So we've spoken to a good number of principals, yeah. And
So it's
without
their
coming from
choice.
administration, they won't
Interesting.
switch to prior service.
Why is it their choice?
Yeah.
Seems like you would want.
Um,
Well, it's even their choice as to how the kids actually eat lunch, because like at Westside, there are individual desks, but at Rogers Park, they're just at regular tables like
It's
this.
true, the timing is also their choice, like
Yeah.
at Westside, they do like 15 minutes and that's it, whereas Rogers, you can sit and eat until you're done and then choose to go outside or not. So it's like a little bit different.
Timing was a very, very big issue going into this year. A lot of principals reworked many of their schedules, several variations of it, to accommodate for it, because there are state guidelines that do require a certain period of time for students to be able to eat from start to finish. So trying to fit those mandates in, as well as making sure that teachers have,
What are those
I was
mandates?
just
For
gonna
how
say the
long-
same
because
exact
My
thing.
daughter's at Westside.
The
And
Connecticut
she
State
has less
Department,
than 15 minutes to actually cram food in her mouth.
the
which is
Connecticut State
impossible.
Department of Education requires 20 minutes.
Okay, that's.
So from
So
beginning
20
to-
minutes, not for necessarily the last child on the line.
Right.
The lunch period needs to be 20 minutes.
Right, and they're not
So if you
getting
have
that.
50 if
And
you have
truth
50
be told, my daughter brings her food because she has allergies and she doesn't venture out.
Yeah,
We call it that. But they have less than 15 minutes between the hallway gym and everything else.
So in other words, from the time the bell rings, so to
Mm.
speak, till the bell rings again,
Yeah.
should be 20 minutes.
Okay,
If there's 75 children online, of course, the last child is not gonna have 20 minutes.
right.
But more or less, they do, given the parameters.
Which goes back into the timing of things, making sure that it's a meal that we're able to fully function and be able to serve schools like Westside who have, larger volume than say a traditional smaller elementary like Pembroke or things like that, and we're able to get the food out to the kids in a timely fashion. So timing, as you guys know, is a major component and has still and continues to be a hurdle for the whole program.
And then we have some schools, at Shelter Rock,
It was full classroom,
they
correct.
uniquely, 100% in the classroom.
Not anymore,
Not anymore.
no.
Right.
Used even the-
Oh,
Two is in the
you mean
class.
starting to short?
No, we started. I stopped in the building, so I know that. K2 is in the classrooms. All breakfast is in classrooms.
Yeah.
K2 is in classrooms, and 3-5 is in lunchroom.
Oh, they are, okay. When did that start?
October, maybe?
Really? Okay. It's working well?
They're happy to be in lunchroom.
Okay. Well, it's not all about, the way the Department of Education looks at it, it's really not just all about nutrition. It's really about socialization. It's all about, that's their time to kind of explode, if you will. So to try to keep them down and tell them what to do and try to keep the heads down, flip the light switches. From where we sit, it all goes into the pot. It's not just about the hamburger. It's the whole experience, if you will.
Absolutely.
Break
Yeah.
from the classroom.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is 20 minutes. That is a state guideline. There were many schools prior to COVID that had way more time than that, especially at the high school. Their lunch period was 45 minutes. We got that one, we call them waves of students that come through. Of about 350, 400 students, we served them in, I think it was 12 minutes,
Mhm.
10 to 12 minutes. They ate for 10 minutes and they still had a good long time to sit and socialize. So that goes into the pot. How our serving style does really affect the quality, the socialization, eating in the classroom. There's just certain things that we couldn't give. We heard when the students return, we don't give them sloppy items. Don't give them canned fruit because it's too wet and it may drip onto the table, or things like this. So we were challenged to kind of solidify and really modify what we did into what we can do. And it's just carried through for the last year and a half.
Wow.
Now, are there, you mentioned the supply chains, because I know my son personally does not eat the lunches, but since everyone is eligible for a free lunch, we heard there was issues with running out of food, getting frozen food at the high school, frozen salads handed to kids. And like, these are high school, big kids that need a lot of food,
Mm-hmm.
and they were getting frozen items.
I can't answer that. My office happens to be here. I'm here in the cafeteria every day. I don't see it happening.
Well, that's what
Could
we
it be
heard
very,
at
very
the-
well
at the
chilled?
last lunch.
Could it be very, very well chilled because again, it needs to go to a classroom?
We actually had multiple school complaints about that at our meeting,
Yeah.
a couple of meetings ago.
And the same foods being, what was it, like beans or something, served every,
Chippies.
that was it, every day.
Every day.
Day after day after day after day.
And that's this school year.
Yes.
Yes, we've also had reports of like leftover breakfast as part of lunch or as the lunch
Mm.
option. We had a lot of
That's,
comments.
yeah, that's why you're here.
Yeah, that's what we call
Good.
it.
Now I know. What
And it's
school,
like-
what school did you hear that?
I was gonna.
I mean, we're represented from every school here,
Yeah.
No,
but
but what school did you hear, the chickpeas are, but what school did you hear the?
I think it was two about
Shelter.
elementary schools
Chickpeas are
and a
available.
couple of elementary schools,
Was it
and maybe even the
elementary?
high school, there was
Chickpeas are
multiple
available.
comments about the breakfast.
And I actually brought up a post because I was trying to remember when it happened, because I was wondering if it happened before the shift or
Yeah.
because it was a high schooler, not my son, but his friend. And his lunch was a bag of 4 cinnamon rolls, an apple, and a milk.
Yeah.
And he's a sophomore that's much larger than I am. You know, that's not enough for kids to be eating at 10:30 in the morning and has after school, like if that was my son, who's on the cross country team, he runs 10 miles after school, if that was his lunch, that
So we
would
did
be
do,
good.
just to reply back, so we do breakfast at the high school between 7 and 7:20.
This was his lunch.
That was lunch.
Well, I'm gonna dispute it because I don't believe that's necessarily true, and I'll explain why. So we do breakfast between 7 and 7:20 at the high school.
That's correct.
We find very, very few students take advantage of that. We found it very positive at Rogers Park. They piloted a program where we offer a second chance breakfast in and around 10 o'clock. And I think that's what you might be referring to.
This was at the high school.
Yeah, yeah. No, Rogers Park did it, piloted it, and we piggybacked into the high school on it, where we, at about 10 o'clock, 10:30, we offered a second chance breakfast. The girls went up to the halls, set up a couple of stations, and they were able to take a breakfast at about 10:30.
Between classes.
So as the kids were,
This was during his lunch period, so this wasn't.
it might have been, yeah. Well, he might have taken it. Could it have been conceived as a lunch? The cafeteria was still open at that point as well.
Well, right now, August 30th, so right at the beginning of the school. Anyone else's children say they ran out of food at lunch way before? Yes, the chicken was frozen, yes. No hot lunch, no bread, only tortillas for sandwiches, frozen chicken.
That's here at the high school?
Danbury High School, August 30th.
So in the, yeah, so in the
I mean,
very,
that was way in the
the very
beginning.
first early few days, the chicken tender day, as everyone remembers it as, we did run out of an option, but there was still sandwiches, there was still salads available, there was still hamburgers available that afternoon. We specifically ran out of chicken tenders, because we had also served a record number of students in that particular lunch. We actually had over 875 portions of that product available. We used them all by the end of the third lunch. And with only a very short period of time between 3 and 4, as well as students coming down earlier or teachers releasing students earlier, it does cause a bit of a time crunch. So they did have chicken nuggets that were cooking, but it wasn't that we were out of food, it's just that we happened to be out of that particular option at the time. Given the circumstances, it was the first week of school, we weren't really quite sure where we were gonna stand with numbers. A lot of times kids are spending their hours in the day trying to navigate the hallways, find out where their classes are, so it does make a challenge in the beginning, because it's hard to forecast, because we don't quite know what the incoming class is, especially when you have 2 grades who haven't really stepped foot in this building because they were on distance learning the 2 years prior. So you have freshmen and sophomores who have never been here before. It's hard to get a good grasp of those forecasted numbers. I don't believe we've had a incident like that since the beginning of the school.
Right, I just didn't know, so there is no food with.
There has never been a situation, and I can confidently stand by that, there's never been a situation where we have not had food available, ever, since 5 years or longer.
It might not be what's menued per se, that doesn't happen
No, the special.
incredibly
Right,
often.
special.
Yeah, the special for that day, but that's kind of why
But
we're
they have
trying.
such a short time, if it's not ready, that's
Yeah, that's.
where maybe they are putting it out. I don't know. So I haven't heard, like I said, I'm just,
It's been
we're
a
like the
while
voice
since-
of the school.
Yeah, the beginning of the school year, we
Yeah.
definitely, like I said, we definitely ran into an issue with just sheer volume.
And I'll be honest, I haven't heard nearly as many,
Me neither.
as much chatter
Mhm.
as the
Mhm.
beginning of the school year, which I'm sure everybody can understand that the beginning was a.
The beginning was
Interesting.
beyond,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
challenging,
really
reinventing the
challenging.
wheels, I could have been my slogan.
And we were also pre-packed
That is correct.
for those first couple of weeks.
Right.
So
So I
that
think, yeah.
adds a lot into it.
Right, and I think sharing your presentation will definitely help, and if people know, like, I didn't know you could sign up for text, like, that's great.
Yeah, so what we urged when we started that texting service, it was very prevalent, very, very happy to do during the days that we were closed to remote learning. Because we would offer perhaps every Tuesday at the high school for pickup meals during our closures. But maybe somebody called sick. As you know, we couldn't get people to work. We still can't get people to work. Anybody wants to volunteer or come and help us, or know somebody who wants a job, please come and see us. But we may have to change our locations, so we'd send a text universally. So we urged principals, please put it on their website. Certainly on our website, but please put it on their individual websites. And I think the overwhelming majority of websites that I checked, I did see it.
Yeah.
And I spot check every once in a while, so they're still there. But again, I spoke to a lot of principals just recently. Can you reinforce it? Do you send home flyers? I'll print them up, stuff them into their backpacks. A lot of principals are now just doing everything electronically.
Yeah.
So it's just yet another thing to kind of add to the family's task list. But it is very helpful. Sometimes when there's a change, unfortunately that morning it doesn't help, but if we know the night before, and you have a 2-year-old or a second grader rather, and they had their heart set on pasta meatballs, and we're not able to get it, the families could maybe prep them for the next morning. Hey, they're not gonna have pasta tomorrow, they're having grilled cheese, as an example. So that's a great way for us, at least, to communicate. Aside from making the announcements in the school itself.
I have a couple of specific questions, if you don't mind. For the elementary schools, do they still get, I thought they had gotten like a hot food option and then also like a backup option if they don't like that. But then my son said that they announced that there was no longer a cold option, not that it affects him because he won't touch it, but for his friends, he was concerned that there was no bagel or whatever that I guess a lot of the third graders tend to prefer. So I was just wondering if you could clarify what the options are at elementary school level.
There are very specific menu options for the day. So we do have a special of the day, and it's usually a hot item. And there's always the yogurt, cheese, and bagel meal is one option. And should be a deli sandwich as an option as well.
At the elementary school.
That is correct.
So you're saying, so the announcement that there's no cold option is incorrect? There is a cold option?
Yes.
Okay, this is at AIS.
Should be.
Yes, that's
It's listed on the menu.
I know, that's what I'm asking. We've actually had parents say that like her son didn't want the lunch for that day, and then he went to get the bagel, but there was no bagel, and then my son mentioned that his teacher announced that there was no longer a.
Was the bagel announcement just happened to be, all joking aside, like
No,
last
not-
Friday?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay. One of our freezers went down, so
No.
there's a very good chance that
Yeah,
it
we
lost
have
the product.
we have like a parent group, and so
Got
the
it,
parent was
got it.
asking if that was still an option, and my son
Yeah.
just happened to mention that his teacher also announced it,
Oh,
so I
that's
didn't know if it
very
was a
strange.
thing.
No,
or-
those options are universally available across the district.
Okay, so hot lunch or backup lunch.
That is correct.
Got it. My other question comes from the principal at Rogers Park, Dr. Zalia, who is wondering if Rogers Park is going to get the salad bar that they were promised. Pre-COVID. I guess it's all was supposed to be put in and ordered like Broadview.
We actually spoke about that probably 4 years ago at this point.
She said that it was
Does that
green
sound-
light ago, but then COVID happened.
We spoke about it.
now.
I don't know if there was any definite decision made. We can look into it again.
Okay.
Yep. I know they make pre-made salads.
No, she wants to say.
My daughter said that they
Yeah,
had one.
it is something that we definitely
We
put on
were
the
very
agenda.
excited about the pre-made salad, but there has been only on, I think, my daughter said one day since they started.
Really?
So just so you know, she also really liked the plantain one,
Oh, good.
See?
and I think that was the same day.
No.
Yeah, the chicken, I guess it was like a chicken with that
Yep.
one, that was like the lunch that I heard about,
The
that
chicken
she was
drumstick, yeah.
very,
Oh,
very
good,
happy
good, good,
about.
good.
I did have one last question about like the overarching health plan, like from your presentation, it seems like awfully healthy. But are the lunches, like, is the bag preventing like a super healthy lunch all the time? I mean, 'cause I know they still have like corn dogs some days and stuff like that, which I'm personally like not healthy at all. So I know pizza is always an option. Well, they always have pizza as an option, I mean, that's like so unhealthy.
Crust or something.
I feel like the other
Yeah.
option should be healthy, but I didn't know if the bag was sort of like preventing, I mean, you seem really like with it and up on your health knowledge, but I
Yeah.
don't know if the bag was like sort of preventing a problem, if the hot lunch would be better when it's served like on a tray, easier, you know, I mean, I can't imagine how hard it is to keep something
I would
perfect in a bag.
Yeah, I would definitely say it does restrict it in a way, the serving style, just because, I mean, a vegetable, if you like prepare it right, then you're like, go and the kids will eat it. But then if it's like cold and it's mushy and things like that after having to put it into all the individual, it's like the appeal of a vegetable definitely is taken away. So that always is a bummer. Otherwise, I would say it always fits into the guidelines. So you can always count on that portion. It's always whole grains. You're always having a certain amount of fiber. You're always having a certain amount of, all the nutrients are all there. They just might look a little different. So a corn dog, you know,
I would
it's
say
not.
there's some of the kids, like, some of the kids, the school meals are like, that's their meals, right?
Right.
They go home, they don't have a perfect household
Right.
that has whatever they want, so the school meal is their meal, and I was just thinking that should be a decently healthy option
Right.
for both of them.
I think we're definitely also trying to move as the serving styles are hopefully changing.
Okay.
It will move a little bit more in the direction of adding, like, I sneak a little bit of vegetables in the chili, stuff like that, like, you know.
Cool.
So we are kind of leaning a little bit towards in the serving style, including options that are more home cooked, because that always helps in any facet of nutrition. Like if it's home cooked, it's more than likely has less sodium, processed fats, all that stuff. You can kind of
All right,
count
probably
on.
more likely to eat it.
For sure.
Which is why I think the chicken
For
leg
sure.
was so.
Well, we want,
Yeah,
we
so
So
it was a
want,
good
abundantly
day, the
popular.
chicken was a good day.
we'd like to menu items that they're gonna like.
Right.
But
So
the problem with getting that out, and that's my concerns, if all the schools aren't required to go back to the
Yeah.
other way, then you're left with really not quality food.
Yeah, right.
So I'm concerned about that, if why it's not a blanketed, and that's obviously not a question for you guys, clearly, Kevin. Yeah, and where we can find out why
Right.
all the schools, if we can do that at Danbury High School, we should be doing that everywhere.
Well, and that's what's tricky is like some schools, if you're moving a little further along, you want to give them all those options. Like
Yeah.
we have tons of ideas and things like that, and we're willing to like work with our staff to get to the point of like creating those. But it is really challenging if there's how many elementary schools?
13.
13.
13.
Sorry, I'm from Weathersfield, so I'm like not down these parts. But yeah, so 13 schools you gotta get on board is really
Well, I'm
challenging.
even more concerned, I'm sorry, because now to hear that there's even more restrictions depending on which school and where their lunch setup is. So now if they're worried about something spilling, like when, I was surprised to hear that. So now there's even more limitations on what you guys can offer these kids, which is why none of my kids get lunch anymore, because they were like, it's changed, we don't understand why, and they think it's awful. So we bring a home lunch every day. I mean, they were pretty, I mean, they always had their favorites, but even that has changed. But I think that that's part of the problem too, is to hear that depending on what school you're in,
Right.
if it's a, yeah, I mean, if it's a bagged item, on top of it, it's even more limited based on how they're eating within the school. So how do you have any options? I mean, what are your options? What do we feed them? You know what I
Unfortunately,
mean?
is what,
Jane.
no, AIS, we heard from AIS, the teacher took it upon themselves, no, I'm not gonna give you options. Everybody gets a hamburger and whatever fruit is in the bag and
I mean,
whatever vegetable
I
was.
don't think it was displayed in that way. She was making some announcement from the school, like my son's teacher is very like easygoing, she's not gonna make some sort of random rule. It had to be for that day, or maybe my son took it as forever, maybe it was for that day, I don't know, that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
But I don't think she like went rogue and was like, no cold lunch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it was something that came down from, you know, a different place, but either way, it does not seem like uniform at all, and I wonder if like the spilling stuff, maybe because they're eating in a classroom and they're like getting on their homework, I don't know.
Soup in a thermos, so what's the difference?
There is no difference.
So like, I mean,
We need to
and
ask
if you're gonna
Kevin.
tell me my kid can't have that, then we're gonna have a problem if you tell
Yeah.
me they can't eat their lunch from home.
Mhm.
So
That's
I don't
what
know, I
elementary
think
has the
that's,
most
I'm really upset to even hear that, and I did not know that it was not a uniform decision. I think this sort of piecemeal doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I think also, you know, I can't really speak to what a principal's job entails, I guess, but I know everyone, they want like, you know, the best for their kids, hopefully. And so I think there's not been a huge, I think we can involve the schools that have successfully implemented the service, like the high school and Moore Street and things like that. I think we could kind of get them to communicate a little bit so that then they can see, not to be like afraid, I guess, of like letting the kids eat in certain places and see what they're doing and communicate a little more. So we would love to also facilitate that as well, to kind of see if they have ideas amongst each other to get something to work, you know what I mean?
I do, I.
Hopefully, I mean.
No, I
maybe-
do, I hear what you're saying, I personally think it should just come from the top, that everybody has to, figure it out, so that we can have quality lunches for the kids, and more options. You know, in the salad bar that you're talking about at Rogers Park,
They're having it Broadview, I guess,
you
they're
know, they
asking
used
for
to
it.
have it at West Side too, my daughter said it's no longer, I mean, those are things, we should have at all the middle schools, the high schools,
Yeah, definitely the
options, I
middle school
mean,
should be equal. for
it should
sure.
be equal, like, it feels very disconnected, I don't really understand the sort of mindset around this right now, but, and, you know, and again, I know it doesn't sound to you per se, so we'll have to try to,
No, we're for.
See why it's not a uniform decision.
In fact, I look at Mara Street, and the principal there came to us, collectively, we met about
2 months ago?
maybe even more
Maybe even
at this
more,
point.
yeah.
Soon after school started, and she says, can we do kind of a hybrid of what your intent is, or what your direction was, to pre-pack everything, and yet give the kids somewhat of a choice.
yeah.
And so to this day, I'm not sure how involved you are with the school, but the kids have a choice of vegetables, the kids have a choice of fruits. Where in the past, they'd only get the apple dropped in the bag.
And they like that.
Everybody got
Yeah.
it. And they
Yeah.
like it, and they're eating it.
Yeah,
The more important, our goal is for the kids to eat it. If they don't
Yeah.
eat it,
And I guess.
what do we need to be here for then?
Yeah.
We want them to eat it.
The individual.
But it's the fact that if the individual schools have to approach you to make a change,
Right, it should be
that's the disconnect.
overarching
It should
problem.
be district-wide, this is what we can do. Like, you shouldn't be waiting for each school to come to you. It should be like, hey, we did this for Moore Street, we can do this for every school. Why is, is that happening, or you don't change until you're asked?
No, we approached, we kind of piloted it at Morris Street, extremely successful, principal is very, very happy. As a matter of fact, she wrote a great congratulatory email to us. And we took it to, we brought this concern, a couple of weeks ago. We met and we brought it to administration's attention, and they're going to be addressing it with the principals.
Kevin's back.
I had to leave the room. But it was great to walk in here about chicken nuggets.
I do need to run out.
Appreciate the distraction. But what
So a lot of the concern from what we're hearing is our serving styles. The quality is stemming back to the way we're serving. So we'd like to get all of our schools back on the way we were serving pre-COVID.
For quality and for more options, and it sounds like it's principals are being,
it depends on the school and our ability to spread out or not be able to spread out. And so we have some cafeterias that are so small, literally the kids don't even have as much space as we have right here. And some schools do. So, for example, South Street, the cafeteria is particularly small. The same with Ellsworth Elementary, particularly given the size of those two schools, whereas Sadly Rock, we're able to spread everyone out. We literally have a single desk. The same is true at Park Avenue. They're really spread out, have a single desk, and they're kind of separate tables. But the school is so big and the cafeteria wings are so big, they still have, as big as the cafeteria is, they still have tables in the gym. We're taking over half of the gym to try to distance the kids as much as possible. So it's really going to be school dependent, and to help determine whether or not we can do this. Given what we've learned about the spread, I think we're in a much better place than we were before. But we also are at greater risk when we have more kids on top of each other without the mask, and have challenges with quarantine. So that was really the difficulty in just saying go back to normal in our cafeterias, because we didn't want to expose ourselves, increase our risk in that regard. So that's kind of why we've been hesitant to go all the way back. We understand it comes at a cost to some of the things that Eric's talking about. He doesn't have the options that he's had previously. But that's kind of, and so Morris, and as I shared with Barry a couple weeks ago, Morris, they had the opportunity to kind of spread out a little bit and have some options for lunch, which has been great. But as I shared with Barry, I walked into the cafeteria that day, and I'm hearing important for me to have this discussion and find an opportunity for us to talk about families having input and students having input in the actual menu. Hoping that that will improve not just quality, but also kids just kind of going back to what I heard when I walked in. Jade was just talking about different options. Kids will be happy with what's being served. Barry probably already shared the issues and challenges around shortages, with food shortages, and staffing, and that aside, because that's just kind of what we're dealing with right now. But longer term, maybe not right this minute, maybe not tomorrow, but 22, 23 at the latest, we want to make sure our kids have some, and our families have some significant say in what the menu looks like. And if they're happy with the menu, I'm hoping kids will begin to be a little happier with the food options that are in front of them, corn dogs or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I mean, they probably would like it to me, that doesn't want it to have it.
And this is, but Mary's right, because until we met a couple of weeks ago, I hadn't thought about the fact that, again, at least not in this time when we met, that we're limited options when the staff can't reasonably get hot lunches and say, hey, Jay, would you like this lunch, this lunch, and this lunch? It's kind of one lunch or breakfast or whatever, and you put it down on the table because that's how we have to serve it this year. But we can definitely go through a process in which the schools that have the ability to serve, because we can spread kids out. I can revisit that with principals. I think that's that Promise Barry does that. And we can look at those schools that are able to. We'll have some equity issues, because there will be some schools that will not be able to. But I think the vast majority of our kids will have the flexibility to do this, so we can jump back in there and identify which schools can and then which ones cannot. I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking Ellsworth and South Street are going to have a difficult time spreading it shut.
My kid's on his third quarantine from the lunch table, so.
And when we quarantine, that's typically when it is.
And to that testament, that plays a
Yeah.
big challenge into a lot of the things.
Yeah, and that's like with Shelter Up, I'm totally good with the principals making the decision, because I know she's making the decision that's the best care. Our biggest problem was like the chickpeas, like every other day, and I do think that's gotten better. And things like, and like I said, I have a unique perspective because I sub there too, so I'm there at lunch every day with them. And like when they get salad, but there's no dressing. Like, I did 4th grade and 80 hands are up because they like salad, but when there's not dressing put on it, then they're not getting it.
Yeah, but again, is that like one of the concerns where you're hearing that some classrooms are saying, maybe
No,
they
because they
don't
have
want
range.
ranch filling? and
No,
so
because
now
they have
that's
range for
another-
like carrots and stuff other days.
Okay,
I mean,
because it does sound like there's that element to it too, depending on where you are, what kind of your eating setup is. I guess I just get confused with like, what does the spacing have to do with how we're serving food, like what we're serving? I
I
don't know,
think for
I
ours,
don't,
like,
I'm not sure I
looking
understand.
at, like, our kindergartners are way down the hallway, down the wing, and you can't give a kindergartner a tray
To walk back.
and walk through Shelter, walk down, it will never get there.
They're
So-
eating in their classroom.
So typically, it's kind of, I guess when we're no different from when we were in school, I guess. You can go up, you have the option of a sandwich, cold lunch, or pizza, right? You have different options. And now, because we've asked food services to bring the food to the table, we're not gonna walk with mashed potatoes with gravy and loose peas and expect his staff to run these things and get these to all of the tables for 200 kids, lunch wait 30 minutes, and then you have to get them off, clean them up, and then get another 200 kids with loose food going in plate to plate versus a cold lunch in a bag. We package them, they're all ready to go. 300 kids, 330 kids, whatever the size of the school, bag. That's a lot more reasonable in terms of how we have to turn them over. So the schools that we have some more flexibility because the cafeterias are bigger. We can go back to the kind of older style of going up. Chrissy, what would you like to eat today? Would you like a pizza? Would you like a sandwich? I want a sandwich, an apple, boom, boom, and you go back to your table. They don't have to go with the bag lunches on their table, they can spread it out. So I think that's what Barry was referring to. We
Absolutely.
kind of piloted it at Morris to see if this is something we can do. But I'm telling you now, if we go to South Street, Ellsworth, it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight to be able to do that and not have the increased risk that we're talking about.
middle ground, so the kid orders in the morning and then has that lunch delivered.
Because they all sit at the same table, right? So it's-
I'm sorry, say it again.
Almost like a hospital, like when, anyways, they're retiring them, you know, so you order what you're gonna eat, and then they bring that meal to you,
I don't know.
like something like that.
That doesn't vary, I don't know.
Well, in effect, we have that today.
Right, so they kind of used to do like lunch calendar or whatever sort of a thing, so I mean,
Just coming through our area, our serving area is gonna just change the minds of a lot of folks, I think. It's gonna look nicer, they're gonna have
yeah,
more
I mean,
choices.
I'm all for that, I think they should go through,
Yeah.
but I also understand where you're not gonna have a kindergartner walk, you know, a quarter of a mile.
Well, in that particular case, maybe we make special menus just for those
Right.
groups. We understand there's some challenges with the little ones carrying
That's what I'm
tray
saying.
back to the class.
In that case, maybe they could order like in the morning and have their hot lunch delivered to, you know, or.
So some of the challenges with that I definitely think we could grow into and definitely take a look at are something like transporting. So for like a school like Shelter Rock, who has classrooms, the majority of it, you know, taking out, and I'll use a low number, say 100 kids, transporting 100 lunch trays while keeping them above temperature, maintaining all the food codes and everything else without spilling and anything else. Everything, if it's assuming that it's self-contained, every product on the menu would have to get packaged, everything would have to be pre-contained, pre-wrapped, so you'd still get a bag of things. So is it possible? Of course, with enough resources and enough time, and time being a very large component in just about everything that we do, especially how precious it is for the principals and the teachers and everything else. Is it possible? Theoretically, but is it practical in order to take, you know, a hospital cart around to classrooms, and while you're dropping off 20 trays to classroom 1 and then having to stop, unload, go to classroom 2, 20 more trays? Is your food gonna stay hot? What are the resources that are gonna go into that, and making sure? So there's a lot of challenges that do that, which is one of the reasons why, as much as the prepackaged food does kind of play into it a lot, it's a little bit more easier, because you know if you have, say, pizza, for example, like the Galaxy pizzas, which kids have seen the ones that they look like little pies, pretty much. You know, it's a lot easier to bag 200 pizzas and then off they go to the classrooms along with whatever their vegetable and other components may be. Trying to give them individual trays and things like that, it does open up a big clause into having to transport, you know, okay, we're gonna do 200 bagel meals first, and then we're gonna do 164 sandwiches, and then 47 of this, and then 28 of this. So now you're gonna have to do multiple trips, because you could have multiple products and different guidelines that you have to
Talk
reach.
about the environmental impact we're making on top of it all.
Well,
That
that is another
I just wanna
component
run
to
out
it,
of the
exactly.
realm. I can't.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, because something as simple as crazy as it sounds, as a plastic container, you know, we're not just one school district. I mean, the whole country's ordering the same plastic
Bagging
container.
apples, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But that's another whole topic.
Yeah. So there are a lot of hurdles with it.
Well, thank you.
I hear ya.
But we got some great ideas from the Charles group, the group of dedicated elementary, I think they were all schools? A rep from all schools, Charles?
Yeah, they're all schools.
Yeah, so they're high school down to the elementaries. We got some great input from them. This was mid to earlier November, and our December menu was reflective of it. So as Leah was saying, one of the moms said, and I like to use the example, one of the moms said, my kids love lentil soup with hot dogs. And I presume that's a big Latin cultural dish. And trying to meet the needs, I said, can you tell us what's in it? We had some conversation about it, and I said, well, maybe we couldn't use those particular spices, because they're heavily salted, and we're not permitted to do that. But maybe if we broke apart the spice blend, and we segregated out the garlic and onion powder and so on and so forth, we can come to terms. Then we ran into the risk of giving soup to kids. So we met them halfway, and we came back to the table, Leah and I, and we said, well, maybe we can make a side dish of lentils. Would that kind of satisfy the lentil soup as opposed to having nothing, and still engaging them? And we're going to be running that, I think in January. So we put a lot of their items. They love chicken. My kids love chicken. How come we can't do roasted chicken? Sure enough, we put chicken on the menu. Chicken drumsticks.
They were there.
I don't wanna say they sold out,
Oh,
but I saw it at the high school. It was, I think everybody just gravitated right to that
Record setting
counter.
actually across the district.
So, new ideas, we can kind of customize them to meet our needs.
Exactly.
Because we're
We're
challenged
listening, I
with
swear.
facilities, staffing, timing, as Doug said. It's a lot to do to get those meals out for the kids. But if you come up with any ideas, I'm certainly on email list. We're all on our web page. So look us up, drop us an email. We can start the dialogue. We are meeting, as I said earlier, but I hope will be regular. We're looking forward to the next childless group.
4 times.
Yep.
3 times a year.
We met with a group of students. We're meeting at AIS the end of this week. And we've asked some other principals, maybe they're interested in putting some parents and students in the same room or via Zoom. So if you have any ideas, if you have any suggestions, send it our way and we can just work through whatever challenges we have together. Because at the end of the day, if the kids don't eat,
Nobody went.
we're just making it for nothing. It's a waste all around.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Any other?
Any other questions before we move on to the next agenda item?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
Appreciate it.
Larry, do you have our email address?
Yes. Yeah, I saw your website. I was looking at it today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I'll email
Is there an email there in the website?
Would you mind also sending?
Or I could send, you know, I could send it to the superintendent's secretary.
Yeah.
Can she get it out to you guys?
Sarah.
We'll get that out
Thank you
tomorrow.
so much.
Yeah. It was
Okay,
nice
guys,
meeting
thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
More chicken.
More chicken.
I didn't think I'd ever be this like emotionally invested in like chicken drumsticks. Okay, I'll keep them. And keep the corn dog.
Next up tonight, Andy.
Hello, everyone. The back side over here. I wanted to let everyone know that we have been granted funds to run the Parent Supporting Educational Excellence. Again, so I'm going to pass this around to everyone. We are in the recruitment phase of this project. This is a curriculum brought to Danbury from the Center for School Change, which actually has a different name now. I can't remember exactly what it is, Partners and Education something. It's a 12-week course. We will start on the the last Saturday of December and then go for 12 weeks. I've given you the registration form as well as every single evening starts with a question of what you're going to talk about in class. It is facilitated by 2 folks outside of our school district, one that has an educational background, one that has a family background, as well as understanding how districts work, how policies are written. And it's a nice complement. I'm sure many of you have heard of PLTI, the Parent Leadership Training Institute. It complements that in a way of helping families to become change agents, effective change agents in their schools to make change around policy, working with the Board of Ed, understanding how Board of Eds work, understanding how laws become regulations, and then on to how the regulations and the policies are made from that, or how the policies are made for the regulations and the statutes. It also has an opportunity for families to come together and talk to other community experts around education in Danbury. This is happening in about 4 or 5 other districts this coming year, starting in January. Our Saturday meeting will be in person at our Cottage Street facility where I'm located right now. We'll do social distancing and the class will start there. And then we will be on Tuesday nights on Zoom. It'll be about a 2.5-hour class at night. This is all free of charge to our families. And so we're asking for everyone to go back to their school to recruit 2 people. We'd like to see a full class of 26 folks. They do attend a Board of Ed meeting, so as we get back, if they're in person in like March, they'll be there. Superintendent Walston comes and speaks to the group. It's a really, really good class to really understand what makes a district work and how can families be really good change agents in making changes in their schools. So I invite all of you to encourage folks or yourself to become active and register in this program, and we'll be off and running in January. Yeah.
And can you explain how this is different, if at all, from the PTO?
PLTI really focuses on civics and personal development, where this is focused on school change and how do we make decisions and how can a parent or how can a family be active in those changes. There is not any PLTI project like at the end, but we have seen many people move into Board of Ed positions, city council positions, really understanding how government and districts work. So where PLTI is really focused more on civics and being a citizen. Yeah.
Will it have information like specific to Danbury, or is this more like general knowledge sort of?
It does. So, you know, we start off at the 10,000-foot level talking about how laws are made, what comes down from the federal government, like on Title I, then or exactly what Barry talked about. Starts in the USDA thing, then it goes to the State Department of Ed, how the state works with the information they've received from the feds, and then how we operationalize it in Danbury.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So there will be very specific things to Danbury, especially when Kevin speaks to the group, when we have community night or the World Cafe, which is, you know, a little different on Zoom, but, you know, understanding other families' perspectives in the district, that's one of the change. And what I've given you on that second page is those questions that will be asked each night. And so you can really see, you know, how that happens national, state, and then how do you get those perceptions and take those opportunities at a local level. Okay, great,
If
thank
I
you.
may, I just wanted to add, hi, I'm Grace.
Grace is my new assistant director for the Office of Family School and Community
Hi,
Partnership.
thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to mention about the registration forms. We had some parents just having a little bit of trouble sending it to me electronically. It's a written form, so some couldn't scan it and send it. Even if you just email over the information on the form, totally okay. It doesn't need to be signed. Obviously, the most important information is that first part. But if they don't have access to a computer or Zoom, they can definitely just send it over to me, or you can kind of be that bridge or liaison and send that information over to me. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I just missed, who is actually teaching the course? Like, who?
So the Center for School Change assigns 2 different people. One is an educator from another district, and then there is another professional facilitator that helps facilitate. And they spend time with us ahead of time learning more about Danbury as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they're from the center,
for school change. That's where the curriculum is written from.
okay, is that in?
In Hartford, yeah,
Oh.
in Hartford, yeah.
They serve as a resource group to school districts across the state. So they're not like the rest, like Ed Advance, or they're kind of independent from all the rest. But they still work hand in hand with superintendents and state and district officials for initiatives like this. They work firsthand with the commissioner's office on these types of initiatives, family engagement, et cetera. And then serve as kind of a liaison between the state and school districts to help lead professional development efforts. Someone receives a grant, they have facilitators there, trained facilitators, a lot of them retired superintendents and principals.
That's what I was gonna ask, what their background, like if they're
And if anybody was, thank you,
in
good question.
academic, academia, like that's where,
So what was it?
like they're from academia.
Yes.
but-
Yes, but can talk to families on a non-academic
Okay.
way too, okay? You know, it's all about equity and developing relationships, because when you develop the relationships, that's how change happens.
And in cases like this, they're likely to send someone to us who has a family connection kind of background. Like the fact the commissioner, the state commissioner is, I forget what was Commissioner background prior to this appointment as commissioner?
So, Charlene Tucker,
Mm-hmm.
she is, her background was like overseeing the whole family school partnership.
So
part
they're
of the
likely to
state
send
commitment.
someone to us with that kind of
Yes.
background in this
Yes.
situation.
Patrice Nelson, who was a facilitator for our POG project, she's the one that oversees that for school change. And if you were any part of our designing our POG, I know Estella, you were, Kate, I think you were as well.
I was there.
Yeah, and you were there too. Yes, you were there too.
Give me credit for something tonight.
Sorry, there you go. She, and Rachel, you were there too, right? Yeah. So she is really the, the go-getter for this. And she makes sure I get to interview the person that they're having come for it. We've had in the past 4 different facilitators, 6 different facilitators, because this is our 8th round of this, and they've all been phenomenal. I've had no issues. I've known all of them, and I'm hoping that the gentleman who just did PLTI, Bruce, that he'll accept this. If you've just recently taken PLTI this last year, it would be great to have Bruce, like to balance it out, because we'd like to see some dads part of the program as well.
Also, just wanted to mention, the course is only at this time offered in English.
Yes.
So if you have any parents that, understand, speak a decent amount of English, they'll be able to get through the
Yes.
course. But at this time, we're only offering English.
So what we've done in the past, because we've had a fair amount of people that are bilingual, we meet a half an hour ahead of time with them to go over those really key terms that are going to be introduced during the course, so that it doesn't slow down the pace, but it gives that family, what is an IEP? What is an individual education plan? So we spent half an hour prior to class starting on those different terms and concepts to make it easier for folks to go in the class. Pair people up.
I assume you guys are still in the process of choosing which Saturday it will be?
It will not be the weekend that PLTI starts on. It will either be the 22nd or 29th.
Perfect.
Yes. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
All right. School reports. Sherry, you want to start us off?
Sure. Okay, so for the high school, we finally finalized our mask fundraiser. We had pickup to delivery this past Saturday and Sunday at the high school, and it went very well. We do have some that were left over that weren't ordered, or were ordered but weren't paid for, and nobody really responded. So we do have a few left over if anybody still wants some. We have put on pause the senior blue wall project just because of weather. So in the spring, they'll finish the final touch-ups. Joe from Westside is going to finish that. And the beautification for benches and flowered bushes by the gym doors, obviously we'll be waiting on for the spring for the weather as well. Our focus right now is thinking about senior gifts, ideas for the seniors for prior to graduation. So we've been going through some ideas, and one of the plans that we have is starting in January to ask the seniors to sign up for the program through like a Google form, and then we'll do like a random drawing for those seniors that participate, and we'll do 22, because that's the focus for this year, 22 gift cards for like a Bagel Man or another venue that we come up with. We kind of have been asking some students, for venues, and everyone seems to keep saying Bagel Man. So our next meeting is going to be the end of January or February, and we've already put out that we're looking for senior parent volunteers to help this year again, because after we do the gift cards, the other thing that we thought about doing is 22 days prior to graduation, whichever day that ends up being based on snow days. We want to try to do like baskets and raffle them off as well as like a bigger item to make it a little more exciting for them. We're still kind of trying to figure out what to put in them. And the lawn signs, we're trying this year to do a little bit earlier. I guess I'm a freshman parent, so I don't know, but prior to this, I guess there was some concern about getting them in a timely fashion. So that's something that they really, feedback has said that they want that to be earlier. In addition, the school, there's a Danbury school store that's online, but the Hatter's Hotspot is started up. A new staff member took over, and she recently opened it at the beginning of December, and we're partnering to try to sell some items as well so that it could be a little more lucrative for her as well. And just our next meeting, we're just gonna try to do more of like a presentation style. Since, as I keep hearing everyone mention, that it's more than just the freshmen that haven't been at Danbury High School. And I know me as a parent, last year, it was very difficult to try to register for classes because it was so brand new, it felt like my child was in college. And so one of the things that a lot of us had talked about is maybe just having a simple presentation about how you register for classes at the high school, because I know for myself, that was a concern for me last year. I was panicked, and this year I still am like, oh no, wait, how do I do this again? So, you know, because we haven't really talked with other parents in person and we haven't been in the schools, so, yeah, I think so. And I mean, I would like to have that kind of factor over to 8th grade parents as well, because I know for myself, I was very nervous about it. So I know people with seniors kind of look at us, yeah, and say, oh, you'll get there. But anyway, so that is one thing that we're trying to push for, and then maybe there'll be, you know, people that will also want to be involved.
The good thing is they will make sure your student takes every class needed to graduate. Like, they won't be a senior and all of a sudden.
Right, but it's
let
one
you
of
know.
those things when you don't know,
No, I know,
you know.
It's hard. And there's a lot of choices, which is,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, right.
it's a good thing and an overwhelming thing, but the options are phenomenal.
And I'll be honest too.
I was gonna say that, but yeah.
We still have no idea.
I know, and I know, I was part of the principal's breakfast, and Dan Donovan had mentioned that we were supposed to have this training in middle school, that the kids received the training for that in middle school or were introduced to it, and I haven't met one parent that said they did, and even parents that have kids that graduated even still say they don't understand it. So that's something I think we need to follow up with, but
Sorry,
trying to
sorry,
just know.
my nominance.
Yeah, I don't know.
The
I don't-
ambiance or the class?
Yeah, I don't even know what it
Classes
is.
available.
Yeah, like how you maneuver through it, like, I don't know what it is, and I don't know when it's supposed to be introduced. But I guess we're,
My understanding is they should be working on it progressively through their high school, their entire high school career. And I was just talking to them about this today, like, have you been in there? Like, you have to put stuff in or you're gonna forget by the time you get to be a senior. And I know like the PTO, the DHS PTO used to have a presentation about Naviance, just for parents to just kind of walk them through, and that would be
I will ask Jen.
a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I know my sophomore, he's never spoken of it.
My daughter's never heard of it.
And he's on top of it. He's on top of everything.
They do get a username and a password, and parents get like a parent password. My recommendation is get your child's username and password and go on as them, because it's just more options open, but it is, like, my son's a junior and he's like, yeah, whatever. He hasn't been on either.
When do you receive it from the school counselor, or?
It's, the students get it, they probably got it in 8th grade, honestly. And it's probably something that they just weren't aware of what it was, but your counselor, your child's counselor can just tell them what their username and password is. And then it does, it's just how they request recommendation letters and, but it is, like, the PTO did used to do it, I think it was just another parent though, it wasn't like a professional or a counselor that came in and did it, it was a parent that went through how to do Naviance.
Okay.
I will ask the high school, what we do now.
Okay.
I've seen it work best when it's introduced, as, graduating 8th graders.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is, so let's just say I'm a guidance counselor, and I would sit with you and we would kind of walk through your career interests. And those interests may or may not inform your electives in your 9th grade year. And so that would begin to inform your schedule for the next year. And then every year you would sit with your guidance counselor, right, and we would go through an exercise, okay, you want to be an accountant, so, you know, you have your typical class that you have to take to graduate, but your electives would be kind of guided by your aspirations when you leave high school. And so those electives, we try to like follow track, and, you know, we speak to you as a student, and we call you mom and dad, and then they say, yes, this is a great idea, this is what my little girl wants to do, right? And then we continue to go on, and then by the time you get to your junior year, that conversation informs college choices and schools that you're going to apply to. And so now beyond, as you continue to navigate, it shows you what schools match your interests, career interests. So the program itself is comprehensive, complex. It's a really good one when you know how to navigate it. So it might be worthwhile actually. I can ask Dan, I don't know if they do like a freshman seminar with all the parents, but I'll find out what's going on.
That would be helpful, and especially the part about the communication with the parents, because I just find that.
Well, I just found my son's password to it. He got it on 3/23/2020.
Oh.
Like you get it, like,
Right after the shutdown,
like, they get it their freshman year, you know.
well, that was 8th grade.
Oh, 8th grade, yeah, I mean, but the communication with the, I know both my kids did admit, oh yeah, there was some assembly about ambiance. And so I know that, and it was probably more than that, but I think something with the parents has kind of fallen to the wayside, and that really would be helpful, I think. So that's great.
I'll find out,
Yeah.
I'll get the message out.
Thank you.
I can start with this group, and we can kind of build from this.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great thing.
Awesome, Sarah.
That's it for me. Sorry.
Chris?
All right, well, we wrapped up our lawn and pie fundraiser, which, was actually record high. We did ridiculously well with that this year, which made me very nervous that nobody was gonna pick them up, because, somehow we pulled it off though. We actually had a record pickup too. They were all gone by 4 o'clock. Usually we're there until 6:30, and we're putting them in our freezers at home. But, so that worked out really, really well this year. We just finished up our spirit wear. We usually use custom ink. Not so happy with them this year. It was not their best performance. We had some quality issues. They shipped me wrong item replacement. I mean, then they came to pick it up without telling me they were coming to pick it up. So, it's been a little stressful with them, but most items are out. A couple of stragglers that hopefully will come in soon. We are currently working on our holiday boutique. Super excited about that. It's just a little kids' Christmas shop. Really glad to be able to bring that and do that this year. We are still looking to schedule math science, which is something actually I kind of wanted to ask. I think other schools do use math science. I don't know if you guys are doing it virtually or hoping to get instructors in.
We were hoping not to do it virtually.
So I was wondering, as I figured there's a lot of other schools, if maybe we could possibly get them as like an approved vendor.
That's so, I mean,
Um,
Mr. Walson would have a better idea, but our principal said that he thought if it was the same instructor week after week and they got that person approved and they were vaccinated, that he thought that would be something that we could probably do in the springtime, which is when we usually do it anyway. Like same group of kids, like group of kids signs up, same group, but obviously I didn't put the forms through or anything.
Yeah, I mean, they're a pretty small shop. It's probably the same person, Sarah, that you
And
work
I think
with.
it's normally like 10 or 15 kids that sign up for us anyway.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if, like, they seem very willing to work with whatever criteria we need, sending vaccinated staff, being masked, keeping distancing. I'm wondering if we work with them, if they would be able to meet those accommodations for like any schools and kind of almost have them approved at like a vendor type level.
It would be more like a club, like a elementary school, after school club.
Well, so this is like, we usually bring it in during the day, during the classroom, so. like,
Oh, see,
all
ours
of
is
our-
different,
yeah.
we did ours after school.
Yeah, so we
So,
bring it in, we brought it in, like, all of the classes get to experience it.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, they do offer the virtual option. It's a hands-on experiment, so doing it virtually, it's not as exciting.
Yeah,
It's not
we did,
as-
virtual, it wasn't that great.
It's hard to interact through a screen, so, you know, that's what we're hoping to bring in
Well, K
instructors.
Street did a hands-on it was nature's classroom, but it was a mobile thing. It was supposed to be outdoors, but then it monsooned the day that it happened. So they had to bring it indoors, and it was in each individual classroom for 4th grade on one day and 5th grade the next day. So they did do it, it worked out, but.
So, yeah, I don't know, like I said, they're willing to, they're pretty flexible, so I don't know if that's something we could possibly do, is have them.
Yeah, do the principal submit the request to the extension visit?
I didn't give it to her yet, like I
Yeah.
just, yeah, we would kind of just.
I did the same thing in team.
Okay, alright, yeah, I figured it brought, like if other schools were gonna use it, it might be less paperwork to kind of do it on a broader, that's just was my thought. You said that was history that you did, or my science?
Teachers class.
Maybe classroom.
Like they came mobile?
It was a
They
mobile.
came, we did it last year, AS, but outside, it was actually amazing. We did
Kids
a
loved it.
full week, they brought like a version of the program that they normally do, like the sleepaway, but they brought it, and they did Monday. Well, last year we were split into 2 groups, so it's like one group had half the week and the other hybrid group had the other half of the week, but, I was able to come and take pictures, they did like 7 different activities, they did dissection, they did like a little walk in the forest. It was really, they loved it, it was a good backup option.
If you have and don't mind, can you send me the contact info for that?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
curious to reach out to them on that.
For sure.
And then we're also looking for a history program, if anybody's got any good, history. Who? What did you say?
Danbury Museum?
Oh, history.
Yeah, so maybe they were, we're not really sure what, actually, we had a parent ask what kind of history. So, not sure it's something we wanna get into, maybe we'll stick with Danbury Museum.
I mean, years ago. Back when our kids were in elementary school, we actually had a music, I don't know if Rachel was there then, but then, she might have been in like kindergarten, but it was a musical program that did songs of all of the history, like Star Spangled Banner, Yankee Doodle, it was like US history, and it was really interesting, because they dissected the songs that kids knew and talked about the history behind the songs. I'll have to see, I might have it somewhere, I don't know if you remember something about that?
Yeah, that kind of rings a bell.
We're still breaking.
Years ago.
Years ago, with Miss Cardillo, so, I'll see if I can find it, but it was definitely got the kids involved, because they would sing along, and then it was like, do you know what that means, or, so I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, definitely.
It was different, for sure.
We're also trying to see if we can maybe for like late spring, maybe May, try to put together a talent show again, that's something that we used to do. We're thinking of trying to do it outside, and we did have some concerns with lighting and playground equipment and things like that. And also even maybe a stage, I don't know if anybody has any ideas on how we can sort of do a stage outside? Like, cause the concern was basically if we just set up like on the blacktop, no one's gonna see a, second grader.
Brookfield Town Park,
Oh,
Brookfield Town Park,
okay.
the stage. I mean, they have a park there too, but,
Yeah.
or
You can
Hatters.
have like a little
What's the
platform
one we're
kind
going
of
on?
thing. I don't know what
It's
like
not
how
really
much
a
it would
stage,
be, but
no, it's not
you
that.
totally can.
Maybe try to do that, or, let's see, we might be better off trying to investigate a different place, okay, and then, yeah. Richter Park.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I'll check these places out, figure out an idea there, cause it would be good, we could do it, I mean, I do miss doing that, kids just love their, it's like their American Idol moment for the whole 2 minutes that they're singing. But, yeah, or telling jokes or whatever they're doing. And so that's basically, I think, everything I've got for now.
Nothing to report. I'll find out about the dues for you, and I think their next PTO meeting is scheduled for January 6th, which is pretty quiet right now.
A couple of things from Westside PTO President Gina. The masks arrived.
They look great.
They're still selling them. They're also running a school store with holiday orders delivering soon. They're trying to plan an outside social / dance in the spring for the 8th graders. Maybe something else for the whole school. And their next meeting is the first Thursday in February. They just had a meeting last week, and they're doing it concurrent started in, COVID, we started doing monthly meetings just to update parents, and then the PTO jumped on and kind of tag team, so they do, it's still virtual. But that's it from our side.
Oh, so Morris Street School, we did do the shop funded, the wrapping paper. And I was not expecting it, but we did, a profit of 1,900. So that was pretty good for something that's not expected. So we're definitely doing it next year. We've had a couple of PTO meetings, and those are with Mrs. Bradley. Next week, we're gonna have a busy week. We're having a raffle extravaganza, and it's gonna be outside. So we have some parent volunteers, and so we have a lot of donations from businesses. So the baskets will be outside. It's gonna be a lot of work bringing, taking them outside and bringing them back in, but we'll make it work. So we're looking forward to it. And we have on the 18th, thanks to South Street, we're having the Danbury Patrick's Hockey Day. So we're gonna be doing that Saturday. Then we're also having a holiday shop for the little guys. And all those were donations by staff and businesses, so we have quite a bit of stuff. So right now at the school, we do have some clubs after school. We do have the art club, and that's by West Palm intern. She's doing an art club once a month. And then we have a science club twice a month, and then we have the theater club that's going on. And I don't know what that looks like, but the kids know that we don't know if it's gonna be, outside. I mean, it's gonna be in May sometime. But we don't know what it looks like at this point. But they're okay, because they're all excited, right? And, they're looking forward to it. So that's what we have going on at Morris Street School.
Shelter Rock, we just finished paying off our murals. They painted 5 murals inside the building to make things look nice, and they look fabulous.
Oh, nice.
We got student of the month medals for each classroom for the school year, and then we got to have our election day bake sale this year, which we didn't get to have last year. We made like $860 off of our bake sale, which is really good for our bake sale. It was very sweet. We had lots of older people that donated like dollars and stuff, just because they could see the kids playing on the playgrounds again and stuff, so it was very sweet. Otherwise, it's been a pretty quiet month. Our principal's been out the past month, so there's not a lot to be doing. After the first of the year, we'll have our yearbook cover contest, and our yearbook sales will start, and then for Valentine's Day, we do carnation sales.
King Street, there's not really anything to report. We haven't had any meetings except for in September. It's just been quiet.
Oh, yeah, my last one. AIS, actually, I can also do Rogers. Rogers Park had the Danbury Hat Tricks fundraiser, which was very exciting. They came to the school, everybody loved it. I don't know what the final tally is on like how much money we made, or exactly how many tickets were sold, but I know it created a lot of excitement. Rogers Park also now has a greenhouse. Hopefully everybody saw the photos online. It's amazing. The gardening club is putting it on, and it is just amazing to see how much time and effort the teachers put into all these things. They made black beans and rice, which they grew the beans. Very cool. I think basically that's what's going on there. I think we're trying to get some like picnic tables and stuff to put in the greenhouse and things like that, but those are the major things over there. AIS has had quite a few things going on. We did an outside book fair that was very well attended. We had a very successful food drive. We sold online spiritware, which is going to be delivered next week. And we are also hopefully waiting on approval to do a drive-through toy clothes donation next week, where we're also setting up these little, it's almost going to be like a drive-through winter, not holiday, winter viewing. AIS has this little
little drive-through kind of setup. So we're setting up these little like stations where kids can stay in their car and see like lights and little like signs and all these like viewing scenes. And sort of you'll drop off your donation and you'll drive through and you'll get a little craft to take home, and it should be very cute. And for the spring, we're looking forward to doing a bunch of different activities. I think our major one will be the International Fair, which will be a setup outside, and maybe different families sort of come and represent their heritage, and they can basically do whatever they want. And we've had in the past very successful all different tables, and people kind of come and stop. So we're looking forward to doing that. And that's pretty much it from AIS.
So, good evening, everyone. I want to start out by saying that Principal Machel is back. And
we're thrilled.
yes, me too. And she got back just in time to celebrate her kids who were finalists to sing. Oh gosh, where's the tree?
At the
that
tree
happened?
lighting.
Yes.
Rockefeller.
So they were finalists,
I saw
Rockefeller
that.
Center. They didn't win, so their
They're
first
darn
prize was to sing in front of Danbury this Saturday. They did an amazing job.
That's awesome.
And so we will have a press release out on them soon. They are incredible. And so obviously I'm sad they did not get to sing at Rockefeller Center, but they really are remarkable.
Ms. Cardamone is amazing.
And the teacher is amazing, and given, it's not as if we have a choir class where kids are pulled from different classes to go, get pulled to go to music class. This is elementary school. The kids are incredible. Kudos to the teacher. I got to meet her. Again,
She's
speaking a
fabulous.
little bit more formal, she really is fabulous. So that was really good to see this weekend. I needed to start off with that before I talk about the last couple of days. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump into it. We had a busy couple of days, school days, including weekend. We have learned that a number of our peers in the region are also struggling with some challenges as well. I just got off the phone coming in. My colleague in New Haven, they had a similar incident today in New Haven, and they ended up closing their school down today. They actually did a lockdown. It sounds like the student had a weapon in the school, so it's a little different. Hamden, you may have seen in the news, they closed down for 2 days as they try to, 3 days, thank you, as they try to get things settled down. Apparently, there was some unrest in the community, where there were some incidents in the community, so I think that contributed to them closing their building down. And one of my cabinet members is doing an internship there, so she's a little closer to what's going on. Then I also called Norwalk. Norwalk is also struggling with similar incidents in their district. I'm connected to some folks there as well. Their situation is really intense. They had a threat where there was a email threat, there was something in the bag, weapons in the bag, including a bomb in the bag. And so police actually, bags were left behind at the school. Police came in the building and went through every bag imaginable at the building. So they were able to get through all of the bags to deem the school and the site safe. They had a 2-hour delay, I believe it was this morning, to try to provide social, emotional, the mental health support for students and staff. But as you might imagine, it had to be quite troubling. I spoke to some of the teachers and administrators that I used to work with at Norwalk High School, as I'm trying to provide reassurance that they're going to be okay. And here we are in Norwalk. So just rewinding back to us, on Friday, it was brought to our attention that one of our first, it looks like one of our teachers had received a message that was forwarded, of course, to the principal. We began to address and deal with what was in front of us, to the point where it was a little concerning because we just are not sure of who the person is. We still don't know exactly. I feel like we have a little bit more information than we had on Friday. But on Friday, we didn't have enough information. We felt like it made sense to send our kids home, send our staff home, just kind of given the level of threats. So we've been dealing with one threat in the morning. We needed some time to mobilize our buses. I actually received an email from one of my parents who was really concerned just about the organization of the buses, and I totally understood where she was coming from. But honestly, our buses, I also thank the bus company, because folks don't work in between, their drop off at the end of the day. So we were pulling folks from childcare, we were pulling folks from doctor's appointments, working out in the gym, taking a walk in the park. I mean, they could be doing anything. And so we were, as buses were coming into the parking lot, on Friday anyway, we continued to keep kids go to the buses that they were assigned to. If it was a true emergency, we would have and don't get me wrong, it was emergent. We probably would have done something different, but we felt like it was controlled and that we got everyone out of the building as swiftly as possible. We did not go with the 2 o'clock dismissal or 1:30 dismissal. It was the building is dismissed. As the buses come in, get on your bus, get out of here. So I think we had 4 or 5 buses actually have to circle back because they left prematurely. And if you've been up at the school, we just kind of have like 50-something buses, I believe it is, and it just kind of all lined up double park. So someone must have made a signal to get them to go. I was standing there watching them leave, and when their kids come up to me, they thought, I had the power to get them home. I did, to get the buses back. And so it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. I think we do an amazing job getting kids in and out of that building. I think typically it takes 9 to 10 minutes with 3,000 kids. Probably took more like 15 to 18 minutes on Friday, which felt like an eternity, quite frankly. Looking back on it, if we know that we may have to make a decision like this again, and I'll fast forward to today in a minute, we would call the bus company further at the beginning and let them know as we're thinking about it or even considering it, we'll have them on deck and make sure they've called over their people. So we've learned from what happened on Friday to make sure they're at the table sooner in the process. I think we had given them about 40 minutes lead time. The majority of the buses were there in that 40 minutes, but like I said, we still had 5+ buses that got there a little late and left a little prematurely. So that's one. The threat itself was vague. We didn't feel like it was credible in that we had enough to substantiate anything significant just in terms of, we just didn't feel like it was credible. However, we also didn't feel like we had enough information to not send kids home. And during this whole time, of course, we collaborated with the police department, with the city officials, with the mayor, gave them the update as well. Today was a little different. We received a threat late last night, followed by another one this morning. We have more information than we had on Friday. The police are pursuing a warrant to go to Google and get the permission to find out who the creator of the account was. But at this time, we don't know exactly who that is. But given that there continues to be some action on that side, meaning they continue to send emails out, it's actually helpful for us. We are making sure we do a better job shielding. We have now the ability to shield the recipients of these emails. And I don't want to, please forgive me, because there's an investigation going on. But we're able to do a better job shielding our students and staff as these emails come in. We don't want to stop the person from sending emails because there'll be a better chances of catching them, quite frankly. So just know we feel pretty good about what we've done to shield our people. I can't say much more than that. Let me also say I struggled today not releasing the high school again. I was in the building this morning for a couple of hours, in the building at the end of the day for dismissal. We went back and forth on what we should do. We felt strongly like we needed to make it through the day, and not because just to prove a point. It was really about, we felt like we were safe, given the new information that we had, which was different from Friday. We're continuing to work with the police department. We've asked the chief to maintain the presence that we have, so we have 5 police officers in the building. We got 2 SROs who are stationed, assigned here, 3 additional officers. They were amazing on Friday. They were in the school, they were working with our staff, because we had some staff members that received these emails firsthand. They were shaken up, as you might imagine. So we did whatever we could to support them. Kelly, who's now our assistant superintendent of special ed people personnel, she deployed her social workers and her support staff to the building today, to the high school. But that support is available for staff and students district-wide. So any requests for any kind of support, mental health support in that regard, they will be deployed to help. We know this is a really difficult time for us. I'm doing everything that I can to make sure we have our bases covered and we have the support that we need district-wide. I was on the phone with the chief earlier this evening. He assured me we will continue to maintain the 5 that we have. If we need more, we can have a conversation. I think the conversation we had early this evening, just a little early before I came in here, because Kevin, I think the 5 is, you can be a good place for 5. If you want more, we can go more. But 5 gives you pretty good presence at the high school, right? So we're gonna we'll maintain the 5 that we have. Like I said, they were incredible on Friday. And the fact that we have people working, his division working on the email exchanges and pursuing the warrant, we're also really encouraged by that as well. We're not at the place now where we're totally hands-off. So our IT, because our IT also has the ability to work and help as well. So we're encouraged by the progress in monitoring and assessing that you saw in that email that I sent out, that we're able to have a little different eyes on the situation than we had on Friday. With all of that said, if the language and the threats continue in the way that we feel like we need to do something different, we will. We'll do everything we can to continue to update folks and update our parents. And if for some reason we think it's in our best interest to keep kids home, whether it's a high school or any other building, we will do so, and then deal with it on the other side, just in terms of, we know it's going to be a significant disruption. Take a look at do that K-5 or even 6-8 for that matter. Well, we'd rather be safe than sorry, but we felt really good today about where we were. We continue to feel like they're not credible threats, but a threat is a threat, and we understand the actions we have to take on Friday. All I can say right now is just given the information we have, we felt a little bit better about not dismissing kids today. So I understand there may be questions after that, but I just wanted to share what I can right now. Yes.
So I'm just curious, Westside, I had just gotten a call and an email as well. So, the wording says, these threats are not credible, which is a good thing. I'm just curious when they say.
I'm sorry, is this the West Side?
This is Westside, but maybe just in general too, when sort of disciplinary action they're saying has been taken, I'm just curious what that looks like, what's happening around those threats,
Okay. So for the families and parents here who are not aware of Westside, we had a student who made a concerning statement on Friday, on the heels of what happened at Danbury High School on Friday. And so we learned about that on Sunday night through a parent. So this child made a statement on the bus on Friday, and I'm assuming that child who heard the statement let the parent know, informed the principal Sunday evening. And so we began to get that in motion. Called a couple of other students. They said that yes, they also heard the statement almost word for word. And so with that, there's actually a code of conduct if you make a threat. It could be up to 10 days plus extra, right? Including police involvement, et cetera. So when we say the code of conduct is immediately applied, it's applicable here. It's no different. And so it really depends on the level of the statement. If there's a weapon brought in, like it's like an automatic 10 days. Depending on the statement or the level of the threat, it can be the same. So I'll just go from there.
Okay.
Without bringing any attention to the king. I was told not to say too much because don't get the
Okay,
district in
I
trouble.
understand, yeah.
But just know there's kind of a max on what you can do with the code of conduct. You may take it like this, that's kind of what you want.
I had a question about, and obviously I wasn't there, but my son's at Danbury High, and the timing of it was as I was driving home from dropping off one kid at King Street, and a friend texted me saying there's like 20 cruisers driving to the high school, and blah, blah, blah.
Is this right?
This is Friday.
Okay.
So I just texted my son, I said, are you okay? And he very quickly responded back, he says, yeah, I'm fine. He did not know that the school was in lockdown until they announced it in passing between the first block and second block. Is that when it happened, or, you know, were some parts of the building maybe on soft lockdown or aware of it before other ones were? I'm just kind of wondering what the process is, because he was aware of being in lockdown for about 5 minutes, and then it was lifted, and that was the end.
So, I'm gonna answer you in a couple ways.
Sure.
So one, I was at the building when we released on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the library. I could barely hear the announcements. So that's one. And so I can understand, depending on where you are in the building, depending on moving in the school, they may or may not have heard. I don't know. I was in the office, I believe, when Dan was making the announcement, but I don't know what that means in terms of what we're hearing throughout the entire school. We were actually shelter in place, which is not a total lockdown, but there's no movement, which essentially means you can't come in for almost like a movement. And so we're not letting anyone in, but you can't go out either. Right? And we don't, the police department encourages not to confuse soft lockdown with lockdown, but it's a very soft lockdown. And it was literally maybe 5 minutes, because I was there, like, from the front office. By the time I sat down and got a mint and said, okay, where are we? Like, we had just come off the shelter in place. But to your son's point, because I had heard the same thing, I don't think everyone in that building, they heard the announcement at that time.
But the lockdown really, literally was only about 5 minutes.
Yes, that's
It
correct.
wasn't from 8 o'clock
No.
to 9, it was just that 5
That's
minutes.
correct.
Okay.
And so what happened when this school, we were assessing the whole time, and we had made the decision, I had made the decision, every building is going to be shelter in place until we have a better handle on what's going on. I had the chief of the police, several police officers at the school, and at that point, we had deemed the school safe. So once that decision was made, which later was in 5 to 6 minutes, in fact, we hadn't even made all the calls to the principals before we had already released the shelter in place across the district. But that's the whole story. So yes, it was really only 4
Okay.
minutes.
I did the same thing with my son. He was like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, I heard
Yeah.
that, and he's like, yeah, I heard the announcement. It was like, I don't go anywhere. And today, I asked him how it was. He was like, I was happy to stay in school all day. Like, and he said, I felt totally safe. It was,
And
he did-
Christian too,
He's
he's like,
really,
it
they
never
wanted to be
happened.
there. So he said it was, he didn't feel any different. He felt safe and he was happy to be in school all day.
But I got text messages from a friend as I was driving here saying, are you keeping Christian home from school? And I said, what?
Oh.
Because I didn't know about, until your message this afternoon, I didn't know about anything else. And her daughter, or another friend, her mom picked her up at 9 o'clock this morning and she's not going to school. Which I get it, everyone handles it differently, but I just didn't even know about the continuing.
No one knows the extra presence. He said
Oh, he
something.
did?
Yeah, he said something, or there's more than a regular SROs here, Dad.
I have a question. I just want to know, I assume that safety has always been something that you've been thinking about and trying to improve upon. But what specifically are we trying to do, like maybe for the high school or for the other schools, like to improve? Like I know I was part of King Street and I know they changed like the front and how you enter and things like that. But are there still conversations going on about what we can do in the forefront so that we can try to figure this out? I don't know, metal detectors, like, you know, just I've heard all kinds of things that people are talking about having more access to police for quicker response or something like that? Like, I just am curious.
So, and this may or may not be what you're getting at when you ask this question. Some of the principals and I were actually talking this morning. It's time to revisit this see something, say something campaign that we had. Because I think more than ever, this is really a time when we need to remind our students how important this is to keep our school community safe. It's language that's been somewhat removed from our community, just kind of given the pandemic, and we don't necessarily have the same momentum that we had in previous years. So that proactively, that is one thing that we've talked about doing. I'm meeting with all the administrators tomorrow for a quick 30-minute check-in, and that's something I'll be reiterating to all of them. Every school, different levels of engagement over the years, but everyone's familiar with the strategies and how to get kind of the full school community engaged. So that's something that I'll be pushing on all of the buildings. And then the other piece is really creating this sense of awareness. And to see something, say something is really important, so I'm just going to stay there for a second. Because I feel strongly if our kids see something and they say something, we're not going to really have any problems at this school or all of our schools. Because if it's something internal, I just feel like there's going to be another student who knows what's going on. And at the high school particularly, we talked about the additional presence of police officers at the school. We have additional, we still need more, we still have gaps, we have personnel shortages as well. It's not just Barry's group. And safety advocates, unfortunately, one of them here at the high school. But I think we're trying to get to 8 or 9, and I believe we have 6 or 7. So we're trying to make sure we output all of those positions. But at the same time, we have 2 additional deans this year, and although their job is not necessarily to walk hallways, but certainly in between classes, they certainly do. And one of the things that I like, they also have a caseload of students, and so they have connections, personal connections with a number of average students that potentially help in a case like this. So I think that's also helpful for us. And the fact that we've hired additional, we'll always want more, but the fact that we've hired additional social workers and guidance counselors this last year, I think also helps in times like this, just to make sure we can get more kids in front of, get more staff in front of kids. And then last but not least, particularly at the elementary level, but we've done this 6-12 as well, we have intentional time carved out for building community in the classroom. And I'm not suggesting in a community building activity, someone's going to say, Kathy did it, right? I don't suggest that's going to happen, but if we're connected with the teacher in a way that does not mean folks, who may have kids in class, talk about how they're feeling about what's going on in school, how this is making them feel, and it could encourage someone to speak out to the teacher when everyone has left the room. And so we feel like a little bit just continuing to be intentional about these practices can lead to being proactive and address some of these issues. But just in terms of additional, hands-on security-like personnel, is not something that we're looking at right now, but doesn't mean it's not something we're going to consider. It is important for me to make sure that we have the requisite number of advocates at this building. I don't feel like we'll ever have enough, quite frankly. And if we're budgeted for 9, then I want 9 in the building. We're still short. So I just met with the director today for security to see where we are. We had a couple of hires, we had a couple of people leave. So it's just been kind of revolving door. But that's probably more information you'd like to know.
I have a question in terms of communication, so it seems like given the, volume and the number of students here, that potentially that there's a situation where it's too loud for a student to hear, it could be a life and death message theoretically. That's concerning, I think, in some ways. I know too, even like a lockdown is usually just like a one shot, if you didn't hear it, you didn't hear it, the message. So I was just wondering, is that something that we can and I know you're walking a fine line between, you don't wanna also cause hysteria, but like,
Well, everyone needs to be quiet when that announcement is being made.
but even like their cell phones, just like that text message of like, you know, like similar to how the principals are communicated with, you know, that something students could even opt into if they wanted to, that they can get an alert on their phone, it's like, you know, shelter in place, lockdown, something like that. That they would then hear it wherever they are, you know, cause I'm sure there's even situations, like certain rooms or hallways or bathrooms even, that are in the bathroom, you might not necessarily hear, there might be a speaker in there, so it just would be, I think, a way to reach everybody.
Like a reminder.
Wherever they are.
Teachers are probably the first line of it, but then what if they're not with a teacher?
Right, so if you're in the bathroom or you're, you know, outside at your
High school
work.
has more freedom.
Yeah.
Taxes.
You know, in addition to those practices, are you familiar with Rachel's Challenge?
No.
Okay, it came out of Columbine, and it's a really impactful sort of assembly, I guess, if you will. I would even say, I would encourage you to reach out to maybe Mr. Dara over at Westside. He does a shorter version of it for the 8th graders. He takes a group every trimester, and my daughter happened to be, I was actually gonna, even before all this was just happening, I was gonna reach out to you and tell you about this, because I thought it was so profound for her that it should maybe be something that's available to, you know, all of the 8th graders, if you wanted to just pick a grade, you know, maybe, you know, at Rogers Park and Broadview as well. It was just really profound. I mean, I could almost start to cry talking about it. She came home in tears. I'm like, what is the matter? She told me about this thing that Mr. Dara had done, and he asked all the kids to please not talk about it so that it stays very organic for the remaining groups. But they basically have this circle of, and I won't go into the whole thing, but it starts out pretty basic, you know, are you in STEM, are you in global studies, step forward if you are, and then it gets a little heavier and heavier, and before you know it, you know, they're starting to learn about their peers and some of the challenges that they might be having at home that they don't talk about, didn't know about. Maybe it's a divorced family, maybe somebody's dealing with alcoholism in the home. And it stayed with her, I mean, in a good way. And I think for her, and for all the kids there, it just sounded like it was very important right now to have that connection, for these kids to have that sort of safe space to say, like, this is what I'm going through, this is what's happening. So I just would say, I mean, I was really gonna reach out to you, and then all this stuff was going on, I said, oh my God. But it was, I love that he's doing it, and I wish it was more available to more of our students, because I think it could be very similar to the say something, see something. I think it could be very, it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna be the answer to everything, but I think right now, especially off of COVID and just all this, the mental health and I know we've got these extra funds, you know, Curtis does it because he does it, but he's chosen to teach up a course and stuff and does it. I don't know if that's something that we can get our other, you know, counselors to do with the other schools. I don't know if it's something that, you know, you could hire these other people that do the Rachel's Challenge and really bring it in a big way, as my understanding, as like an assembly. So just something to look into. I think it sounds like it aligns with what you're trying to do on the other end.
I appreciate it. Frank first.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had a question. I just was wondering if, I saw, and I don't know the credibility or anything, but there is, I'm sure you're aware, I think you actually sent an email about what was going on over at Abbott Tech. Is that part of what is going on here, or is that something else?
Only in timing, at least we didn't see any real connection.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, at the tech there was a picture of a boy with a gun, and I think his face is covered.
Is it a parking lot or something?
In the parking lot, at tech in the background. And the fact that it was on Friday, I find it was great.
Yeah.
It was actually Thursday night. And I think the state police was working with directed over there around that piece. And I actually have to check with Kevin to see how they handle it, or if they can recognize the student at all. But totally unrelated. to
Okay.
us. We didn't think there was any connection to ours.
Okay. Crazy.
Back to remote learning.
Matthew loves that topic.
Rest of the week.
Any other questions or comments on anything for tonight?
Can I just have one, changing the subject totally. Now, what stage are you at with the academy now? What stage are we?
Good question.
So we, thank you for that question, and, I also just want to add some closure to the other one. The academy, there were just some general questions about the state. There's been some significant movement with leadership in the state, the construction office. So we're meeting with, the new folks in charge of the construction office, along with some city officials on our side. So we have a meeting later this week. And I think appropriately we'll have an update for the board the next time we meet. I might plan to have some good news, because good, can't share any of the bad news, bad news. Good news about the project. You know, we applied for this very unique application, and from my perspective, it should not be an issue just because of the change in leadership. But we had not received any responses to some of the inquiries. Those are some inquiries the city made, some inquiries we made, which just kind of fell on deaf ears. And I'm optimistic in that. That's just because things were moving. We may not have been aware that there's some change in leadership coming. So I'm optimistic we're going to get some good news. No, everything is okay. But there have been two really important positions in the state construction office. Two folks are no longer in that spot. But there was one remaining. There's enough paperwork out there to document progress and commitments that have been made. So I'd like to move forward with that, but need to get this meeting first and hear it from the state. So I'm optimistic that's going to be just fine.
I don't know about any of that stuff, I just want to know if the plans go through yet, stuff like that, so.
We're planning on it in a big way, so we get that building open. But another problem, we do know that the Ellsworth project annex is moving forward, because we can see that one. I can't drive by the matrix and see progress in the building.
Oh, trust me, they're working in there.
Yes. Well, I heard
I can hear it every
is that
single
right?
day. I had two, hopefully very easy questions. So when is the AIS lottery? In January? Open?
Is it?
January?
Right after the
Okay.
New Year's, I think
Right.
it's the first thing, it's the Monday now.
Okay. And then, actually, it's three questions, sorry. When do you, the school calendar, when is like next year's done?
Good question. I'm actually asking, my team to put together a calendar committee. So when we
For
get to
22, 23, okay.
hopefully we get to your calendar.
Oh,
So when we, have the reconstituted board in place, see if we can get a committee together. What we have to consider going back and forth, conversation, dialogue, changes. And I feel like if we get the right people at the table, we can make a decision one time and move forward, so.
And-
Early spring, I think is the time.
Okay.
Typically, try to approve it, I have to look at the calendar now.
Okay. Curious.
But I believe it's early spring, I have to say. But that has, I can tell you that 4 years, 3+ years I've been here, it's changed a lot, even.
I
You
know.
the adoptions changed a lot, so
Right.
I'd like to just get a bunch of people in the room and try to do it one time.
Oh, okay. And anything on this open choice, is that like kind of stall? Like, or the article in the paper was like, no one has signed up?
Yes, and so I know what our community needs that they don't want to be part of with us, which is 100 partners. And the gentleman, I forget his name, there's a space on our website. If
Yeah.
there are any queries for open choice, go to our website, because it's supposed to start in fall of 2022.
Right.
So they've actually asked, this is from a representative at Advance. They have actually asked that all of the inquiries go directly to them. No problem, we can work that out. So we put a link on our website, any questions about open choice, but they need these questions to go back to the state to say, hey, there's significant interest in Danbury, and I think they need perhaps a little more ammunition to push on the surrounding districts, to open up seats for open choice. That's just that was my takeaway from that meeting. Because I get requests in my old office, families asking, and then we just continue to say open choice starts in fall 22, when the state gives us more information, we'll share it with you, but we don't have more information at this point.
Right, okay.
So that's why they gave us, so if you look on our website, in the beginning, kind of in the middle, it says open choice.
Yeah.
Click there and you just kind of say specific questions that email.
Is there any perks to another region going into this open choice? I mean, is that what you're waiting for, is the state to entice it, or?
So the state is, if you're a recipient district, there are some incentives for you. You get additional monies, you get a couple of dollars extra, per student. And if it's a special ed student, you get a couple of extra dollars to educate that child. So they try to make it really attractive for districts to participate in it. And then of course, if we're sending the student, we don't lose every penny, and so there's incentive actually for us to send, because we don't lose every single penny to the district. But as I said before, it has to be a partner. So my understanding was Ridgefield, I believe it was their board, there's a 1920 school here, actually voted not to participate. And I do not know what that means for Brookfield and some of our other surrounding towns.
Who's surprised? Come on.
Did my eyes roll all the
I
way
hate
to
to
the back?
say it, but I mean.
But now, AIS, as an example, Brookfield, Newtown, all of them are not cooperative districts, but they all send kids to AIS. Bethel, they all send kids to AIS, and I would argue they
And they love AIS, to be clear. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, open choice would help us, like we have a couple of seats. I don't know if it's gonna help with our overcrowding necessarily, unless we're gonna move cohorts of kids, if they were all kindergartners, and it was all 300 like here in Brookfield right now, that helps us a little bit. But it's a couple from this grade, couple from this grade, couple from this, we're not gonna do that. But it would give families choice, and
That's the point of it.
Thank you.
so I just wanted to go back to the Friday incident, today's incident, obviously. We will continue to update and do everything we can to continue to communicate with everyone. I certainly hope there is not another threat or message sent. If there is, we will communicate immediately and make a decision quickly. That's the best that we can do, but we'll do everything we can to keep everyone safe. Just want to reiterate, the police department was incredible. The division that works with the emails and investigating that area of this work, I have every confidence that they're going to help us identify who the sender is. Little delay over the weekend with everything going on. They had a funeral, they had a loss in the department.
And another
So
one.
they have a lot going on, but we anticipate a couple days even more movement on the investigation. So I'm feeling pretty good about where we are. Again, we have a lot more information today than we did on Friday. But if we get it right that we feel is specific in the way we need to sing kids home, we're going to sing kids home. And then we'll figure out the backlash afterwards. So I'm really sorry about Friday, and today, quite frankly, but we'll continue to do everything we can, keep our kids safe, keep informed.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Sorry, I was a little distracted tonight, just getting messages from everyone.
You got a lot going on. It's okay. Oh, thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn?
That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We meet in January, when is that?
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about it as a board.
Okay,
It's the
with the
first.
holiday?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we're gonna have
We'll be in
to,
touch about
we'll
January.
be in touch about the next date.
Enjoy everyone's holidays.
It's during the holiday, so we're gonna have to go to second. It's like the third Monday of the holiday.
We're back.
Right, way back.
Have a good night.
Pretty close though. I think generally though, Kathy, we have pushed it off for.